turned you from anybody to a product designer? What makes you a product designer versus anybody else?
So during the course, it's a 4-year course, and during the course, anybody and everybody, because they are beginning a journey into design, um, and it begins with art and a small set of learning into CAD, mathematics, a lot of that. So, firstly, we are given a foundation course, 1 year of foundation, where everybody are taught painting, sketching, just drawing a straight line. So that's what we are taught, and also color schemes, very basic stuff, which is in the first year. And I think it started off in the second year when they get into more detail about more CAD drawings or live. So how you can start to visualize a product. So we need to start imagining how a product needs to be, or how a problem can be solved. So it's more about design thinking rather than doing design. So that's what we were taught. Like, luckily we were fortunate enough to get professors who had the same idea about how things are to be taught. So you can't teach an art person, or anybody for that matter, uh, just by writing theorems on boards, or you know and especially when it comes to design, we cannot be taught that way. So we were taught how to think design, and then slowly we got into, so that thing gets into our minds. We start thinking as a designer first. It's a symbol of attraction. We start thinking of being something, and then you become the same thing that you visualize. So that's how the journey was.
You sorry, can you repeat that last sentence? You start thinking about the product and then you become the product?
uh, you start thinking about being something, and then you become that thing. So it doesn't have to be a product, it can be a person that
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And also we
A
can visualize
personality.
the product, like this one here, a podcast maker. It looks gorgeous, and the minute you saw it, like, but you wouldn't so some maybe we are not the designer, so but the designer would have visualized something like a podcaster needs this kind of ambience, or this kind of mic to be, for them to be comfortable. So they need to visualize such a product which is nowhere. So, and then the product is um, in real life. So that's what I mean by that.
Okay. So you had to go through 4 years degree, and
Yes.
I'm sure you probably had to do a lot of case studies, because I have a degree in architecture. I can relate
Yeah.
to a little bit.
Yeah.
I can understand when you say you have to think design,
True.
which is kind of what we were taught.
Yeah.
But there is something called design thinking now everywhere.
Yeah.
You probably came across that word
Yes.
in
Yes.
the
Of course.
entrepreneurship
We are taught
circles.
that too.
So, did anything different about design thinking that we're talking now versus the thinking design that you're talking about that you learned at school?
uh, in a way there's nothing more to it, but also like any other principles, like any other engineering, this also has a set of principles. So these are like, they are bound by some principles. There's design methodology, design thinking. So all these are also taught to us in theoretically and practically. So these things are also bound by principle. It's not just a vague concept of art, and it's not an abstract art or something like that. So it does have some principles which we try to relate our work to, or try to bind ourselves to some limitations. Or like in design methodology, we're also taught how to do research about something. So when you talk about research, or just an open-ended thing, right? Research goes on for hours, for days, for decades. So many researches happen like that. So what we are taught is when to end, where we need to stop that research. So um, when we are thinking about this product particularly, we so these principles bind us from just going everywhere, like losing our mind around it. So we are also taught like certain boundaries which we need to stay in, and that kind of gives us a grounding to doing something, be it research, be it design thinking, be it creating a product. So that grounding comes from those rules. So it doesn't mean you stick to the rules, but there are rules.
You know, one of the things that I am very interested in is exploring professions. So we all understand what a doctor is. There's clearly a body of knowledge that they have to master, and then there are specific skills they have to learn, and they practice those skills, sticking to a certain set of ethics and values. So is the profession of lawyer. That is also very clearly defined. To a certain extent, engineer. Overall, we know what an engineer is, and we can understand the differences between, let's say, a civil engineer, mechanical engineer. I'm not clear how a product designer is different from a building designer. Why do we have a separate degree for product design when we have schools of architecture? I'm asking you a question. It doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly know the answer because I don't know the other side of it, like what architects exactly do. But I can talk about what we do, and maybe we can.
Sure, we can have a conversation because buildings are also products.
Yeah, true.
And they're spaces that we use.
The spaces, yeah. I personally feel all design or they're all bound by the same rules, like architecture. It all revolves around the space, the light, or the kind of experience and everything, like functionality for that matter. Like this is an this is a hall which needs to house these many people. So the same way, same with products as well. So you need to we need to determine what the product needs to be solving. Usually, we solve problems with the products that we create. That's what design is, to simplify our problems, either through product or through experience. So I feel like they all are bound by the same rules and laws. We just see it in different landscapes and different proportions. Like this is a huge building and this is a smaller product. So, but the whole knowledge revolves around the same thing, I feel.
It's a design thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something that I've heard many people say. Those of us who have an innate design aptitude or basic sense of what a good design is,